Good evening, folks. I hope you are doing well. Today, I want to try to answer a relatively heated topic within the archery community, and that is, why shoot heavy poundage? I'm also going to try to film this video in a slightly different style than I normally do, a different pace as well, so we'll see how it goes. But the point I want to try to make in making this video is the answer to the question is actually pretty simple, really. It kind of all comes down to, what are you shooting your bow for, essentially? It's funny to me how so many people get worked up about a question like this, or they get worked up when they hear of someone shooting 80 plus pounds, or honestly, for a lot of people, even 70 plus pounds. To me, the answer is pretty simple. Shoot the highest poundage that you can comfortably. It's really all there is to it. Obviously, that really only applies to bow hunters, I would say, because if you're a target guy, there's actually no reason to shoot high poundage unless you simply just want to, which is totally fine. And in my opinion, that's enough to justify anything. But in the case of bow hunting, shoot the highest poundage you can comfortably, okay? Now, yes, realistically, do you need to shoot anything higher than probably 45 pounds for almost any big game in North America? For sure, whitetail, blacktail, whatever you're hunting. Most deer, you're not going to need more than 45 pounds, realistically, right? But if you're a guy that is physically able to pull back X and X weight, and you want to, for fun or for whatever reason, shoot a really heavy arrow with that high poundage, even if you're hunting for small-bodied whitetail, wherever that may be, go ahead and do it. Who cares, really? I guess the reason that I am titling this video what I titled it is because there are pros and cons to shooting heavy poundage. There's plenty of pros to not shooting heavy poundage. Obviously, heavy is subjective in this case. So let's go over some of my main pros real quick. Pro number one would be, and this is just inherently true, the more poundage you shoot, the harder that arrow typically is going to impact. That's just technically true. If you're able to pull back more weight and shoot a heavier arrow, that combo is going to hit whatever animal you're hunting harder. Simply, it's just going to hit it harder. Now, how you build that arrow depends as well. Of course, we get to film this in another really windy day. For the purpose of this video, though, I want to try and stay away from FOC talk and arrow weight talk unless it directly relates to poundage. There are plenty of arguments as to why you should shoot less poundage. Over time, on the body, it will theoretically be better on you. Obviously, you're not going to be able, unless you're a little superhuman or you've worked out your entire life and you're just naturally in good shape, shooting 70 pounds at 65 plus years old just might not be doable. And so then in that case, you have to go down in poundage, which again is totally fine. I think my main argument is, if your body is physically able, and I don't just mean that you're able to, take 10 minutes in between shots just to muster up enough strength to get a bow back, because then, that goes into the overbowed aspect of it. But if you're young to middle-aged, you shoot a lot, you lift in your free time, you work these bow muscles, and you are able to comfortably draw a bow back, why not shoot it, right? Again, we go back to the technicality, the realisticness. What is actually the point in doing it? And that kind of just goes back to, theoretically, more weight. If you're able to push a heavier arrow, the same speed that someone shooting 60 pounds might be able to push a 375 grain arrow, why not do it? It's going to hit the animal harder. It's going to be more force, more actual foot-pounds of force hitting that animal. You're also able to kill a deer with 45 pounds and a sharp broadhead and a well-placed shot. Just the truth of the matter. My main advocation is shoot whatever you want. Leave the guys that shoot 80 pounds alone. I think most of the people that dog on them for doing that are people that can't do it, and so they need to complain about it. Again, the only aspect where I see you genuinely not needing to shoot high poundage, and again, that's obviously a subjective term to some people. High poundage is anything over even 65 probably, would be target shooting, because in that case, you're shooting a lot of arrows. You're trying to be as comfortable as possible. You don't want to have to worry about drawing your bow every shot. That should be the least of your worries as a target archer. As someone with the primary goal to kill an animal ethically, as quick as possible, effectively, whatever adjective you want to use. If you're able to pull X and X weight and push that heavier arrow just as fast as someone with less weight and a much lighter arrow can push it, why not do it? That's the main pro, in my opinion, to shooting higher poundage. The only con that I can possibly think of, I don't know if there's any studies, it would just be inherently true, I could imagine. The longer you shoot high poundage, especially if you're not physically prepared for the long-term effects, you might notice it in your shoulder strength as you age. And that's totally possible, I don't know, but I would imagine if you consistently work out and you work these bow muscles all the time, so you have enough to actually back up this high poundage that you're shooting, you're gonna be all right. I can't prove it because I'm not middle-aged and older, and I haven't been shooting bows long enough to know the effects that I'm gonna feel. But the point is, as someone that, at least I like to think, I work these muscles really well in the gym consistently, I like to think that I shoot my bow consistently enough to also keep the very, very precise muscles, the actual muscles that you use, every drawback used. I like to think that in the next 30 years, I should still be able to draw back the same weight I'm drawing back right now. So I guess let's answer the question, why do I personally shoot it? This is gonna be different for everyone. Why do I do it? I shoot a V3X that caps out at 75 pounds. Obviously you can twist cables, get it up more, whatever. The mods cap out at 75 pounds. I got that bow probably about a year and a half ago. When I got it, I was coming from a PSE, an old PSE from 2007. Coming from an old PSE from 2007, almost as old as I was. Draw weight peaked at 57. And at the time that I shot that bow, I didn't really work out at all. I didn't do anything to maintain the muscles aside from shooting that bow, right? So when I moved to the V3X, which I would say felt harder to pull back on average, even if it was the same weight as the PSE, I could only pull back 55 pounds when I first got it. I actually might have been pulling 50, to be honest, when I was shooting it in the shop. I got it with the goal to eventually move up to 70 pounds. And when I got to 70, I figured I'd cap it there. A lot of my decision in that was 70 was a good number. Honestly, that was actually part of my decision. I like that number. 70 was a good number for everything I ever plan on hunting, which I might not even get to hunting a lot of it. But for everything I plan on hunting in the future, 70 with a sharp broadhead and a good place shot is gonna kill it. It just is. So, jump ahead about a year, probably, after buying that. I started hitting the gym pretty consistently, mainly just to work shoulder muscles, just to work the muscles I knew got worked when you drew a bow back. And eventually, by that following summer, so actually not even a year, should retract, about like 7 months, that following summer, I was able to shoot 70 pretty comfortably, I would say. Went to a TAC event, shot, 75 targets at 70 pounds, was comfortable, right? And then I realized, okay, I got 70 on lock, or at least I like to think I did. I actually went through quite a big phase of losing 70 pounds and having to work back up to it because I simply stopped going to the gym. That's a big thing. Even if you shoot every day, a lot of people kind of just reach, okay, maybe I can't make this assumption. I'm gonna say for me personally, my body has a max, we'll call it, for draw weight, right? A comfortable max. 65 was super comfortable. 70 was a bit of a push, and that's why I had to start lifting in order to hit 70. I stopped lifting. I slowly lost 70 pounds, especially when it got cold out. I had to get it back. And so this last fall, starting from probably this last September 2023, got back in the gym, started doing it again, and eventually got back up to 70 pounds by probably midwinter-ish. Got back up to it, felt the best I'd ever felt, right? I was like, hey, listen, my bow can go up to 76. Well, 75. I have it at 76 right now just because that's what it hits. 75 pounds according to the mods. Why not go up to it? If your bow can go up to it, why not do it? So I'm working at getting up to consistently, comfortably 75, 76 pounds. And I can do it. I like to think I can do it. I don't think I could shoot a full Vegas round at 75 pounds, but I know I can probably go to a TAC event right now and with space in between each shot, probably shoot 3 courses at 75. And that's from switching to it maybe a month ago. And from that month, or from that time I switched to now, I've maybe only still shot 25, 30 arrows out of it. I don't shoot a lot. I'm up at school. I don't have the resources, we'll say. I don't exactly have the space to shoot as much as I want to. But anyways, that's another point. If your bow can go up to it, why not try to work up to it and shoot that weight? Now, I do agree, and I think there's a lot of truth to this. A guy shooting 60 pounds, let's say he's shooting a pretty light arrow, like a 375 to 400 grain arrow, a relatively light arrow, and he makes a well-placed shot with a nice sharp broadhead on a medium-sized whitetail. That deer is going to die, I would imagine. Obviously, there's a lot of variables. I would imagine that deer is going to die almost just as quick, maybe the same, maybe quicker in some cases, as the deer that gets shot by a 80-pound, 490 plus grain arrow, sharp broadhead, good placement. That's just the truth of the matter. Realistically, good placement and sharp broadhead matters more than poundage. My main argument, and I said this right at the beginning of the video, if you can shoot it comfortably, you're not physically hurting yourself, you're not ego pulling, you're able to comfortably do it, why not do it? Okay? That's just my thought on that. Even if you are a bow hunter and you don't need anything more than 50 pounds, realistically. If you're a guy that plans on shooting bigger game, elk, moose, bear, whatever it is, even if it's far out into the future, why not start shooting that heavier poundage now? Even with those bigger animals, 60 pounds a good broadhead probably is still gonna kill them. But once you get up to those bigger animals, there is kind of a what if factor. What if you hit this and not this? If we could guarantee perfectly placed shots every time, I think we'd all shoot 60 pounds, probably. But that's another reason to shoot higher poundage. It's a little more forgiving if you make a bad shot, right? Let's summarize here so I don't just turn this into a 30-minute long rant. Point number one, why shoot heavier poundage? Because if you're physically comfortable with it, why not do it? Number two, it's more forgiving for hunting purposes. On a whitetail, even if you make a bad shot with a weak, a light arrow and lighter poundage, if your shot is close enough, you'll probably be okay, right? If you shoot heavier poundage, 70 plus, with a 475 plus grain arrow, you're allowed to make a slightly worse shot and still be able to kill that animal. It's more forgiving for hunting purposes. Third reason, if you plan on hunting bigger game in the future, you might as well start shooting the poundage that you think is required to kill these animals. I would say if you're planning on hunting anything, elk, moose, or bear, in that size range, being in the 70-pound ballpark is a good baseline. That's not to say you can't kill them with 60 pounds or less. Okay, I'm not saying that. But those are the main points that I want to bring up. Obviously, there's some cons to doing it, possibly long-term. I can't say for myself, I don't know. I do imagine that it is inherently true that if you're shooting this heavy weight uncomfortably, in the future, you're gonna feel it. You're definitely gonna feel it as you age. That's why I've been saying comfortably this whole time. If you can do it comfortably, you're not ego pulling. You're doing this, and it's well within your strength set, your strength limits. Me, I don't see why in the future you just wouldn't be able to do it because of pain purposes. As you age, you're just naturally going to get weaker, especially once you hit like middle age and you start aging past that. You're going to just be weaker. So that might be the reason you're not able to pull what you used to be able to pull. My argument is if you start doing it comfortably, the reason you have to drop in weight is not going to be because you have shoulder problems. It's just simply going to be because you are simply getting older and you just physically can't do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is way better than saying, hey, I was pulling probably 10 pounds more than I probably should have all those years. Now I literally can't even pull back a bow anymore because my shoulders have just decayed to the point where I can't do it. I would much rather have to age and naturally drop down in weight because I'm getting weaker and not because I'm physically injured and unable to draw a bow back. So that's really all I wanted to talk about. These rant style videos are fun. I don't know if I'd call this one a rant. It's more of just my personal explanation on it. I feel like a rant has a negative connotation where it sounds like I'm trying to tell people off, and my opinion is kind of the only right one in a way, but I'm still going to call it a rant. So I hope you got some out of it. I would imagine that most of the people that watch this would agree. I like to think I have a relatively agreeable opinion on this. General consensus would agree with me on this. If you have other opinions on it, other thoughts, please leave them down below. I'd love to talk about them. But yeah, that's all I got for you. I hope the wind wasn't too bad. I cannot get a day of recording in without some wind. I just can't do it up here. But nonetheless, I hope this was worth the listen. Hope you got some out of it as usual. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.